Hello, my name is Claire McFadden, and I am a sophomore political science major at Bloomsburg University. Today, I'm going to be talking about the opioid epidemic, which is one of the worst drug problems America has ever seen. I'm going to take a look at the logistics of the epidemic and talk about how our response to it right now may not be the best solution. And I'm going to propose an idea as to what we could be doing instead. As an overview, the opioid epidemic began in the early 1990s and has continued until present in the form of 3 waves. Between 1999 and 2018, there have been over 450,000 opioid overdose deaths. A public health emergency was announced in 2017 by the HHS, along with a 5-point strategy on how to combat the opioid epidemic. It's actually estimated that over 130 people die a day from an opioid overdose. Doctors also noticed this issue when they saw a massive increase in withdrawal symptoms in newborns as a result of opioid use during pregnancy. And in 2018, 2 million people suffered from an opioid disorder. So to start off by taking a look at the first wave, it began in the 1990s and it started with the massive issue of doctors over-prescribing prescription opioids. Prescription opioids are natural and semi-synthetic opioids like methadone. This issue resulted in a rise in prescription opioid overdose deaths, along with many people having an over-reliance on opioids for pain management. Following this first wave, federal officials started to crack down on prescription pill production and things like pill farms. This made prescription opioids harder to get, so addicts needed a new source. This is where heroin comes in. Heroin is cheaper, easily available, and more potent than prescription opioids, and this new spike in heroin usage caused heroin-related deaths to rise by 286% between 2002 and 2013. In 2015 alone, 33,000 people died from a heroin overdose. Next is the third and current wave of the opioid epidemic. The third wave is marked by the large increase in overdose deaths involving synthetic opioids. And when I say synthetic opioids, I mean fentanyl. Illicitly manufactured fentanyl has made its way to the streets and is being laced into drugs such as heroin, pain relievers, and cocaine. Illicitly manufactured fentanyl is produced in labs with no approval guidelines or regulations to make sure that the doses are safe. Now let's take a look at fentanyl more specifically. Fentanyl is a very highly addictive synthetic opioid that was first released in 1960 and is typically used to treat severe pain in hospitals like cancer pain. However, a standard dose of it is only 0.05 milligrams per milliliters, making it very easy to overdose on. It's typically 80 to 100 times more potent than morphine, making this a very dangerous drug to be dealt with on the streets where there's no regulation on dosage. Drug dealers will often lace heroin or cocaine with fentanyl without the user's knowledge to make more product for a cheaper cost and to increase the euphoric effect of the drugs. As a result of all of this happening, synthetic opioid deaths have risen 47% from 2016 to 2017. So the current response to the opioid epidemic and an opioid addiction is a felony charge, which would typically land you with 3 to 4 years in jail and a high fine. However, incarceration as a response to opioid addiction has been seen to only further worsen the problem at hand. Studies show that 2 weeks after release, people who have been incarcerated are 42 times more likely to die from an overdose. And in Massachusetts, they found that the overdose death rate for those previously incarcerated was 120 times more likely than the general population. And an investigation by Voss in 2018 revealed that 28 states offer absolutely zero rehabilitation services to those incarcerated for opioid charges. So people are getting incarcerated for opioid charges and then not getting the help that they need to recover from their addiction. So they go to jail and they serve their time, but when they're released, they just keep using. So now we have to take a look at an alternative to the incarceration response, and this is the opioid agonist therapy, and this involves taking opioid agonists like methadone. These are long-lasting opioids that are meant to combat the cravings and withdrawal of short-term opioids such as heroin. These typically prevent withdrawal for up to 24 to 36 hours without getting the user high the way a short-term opioid would. Recovering addicts can receive this treatment at methadone clinics. These are clinics that are set up specifically to dispense medications for the treatment of opioid addiction. So now let's look at some pros to opioid agonist therapy or a methadone treatment. Methadone users are more likely to stay off of opioids because these medications minimize cravings and withdrawal symptoms of the opioid detox. Methadone is also significantly more affordable than any prescription or any opioid that you would buy in the streets. Because of this, crime rates have also gone down with methadone use. Methadone usage also reduces the risk of contracting HIV and Hep C. And going to a clinic every day to receive their medication gives a recovering addict a healthy routine to stick to. While methadone treatment is significantly better for an addict than incarceration, there are still some cons. Methadone is still an opioid, and opioid agonist therapy requires frequent doses, resulting in just another physical dependence on an opioid. It's just now a long-term opioid, but that also in turn means a long-term commitment, meaning that any methadone detox requires medical supervision, the same way that a heroin detox would require medical supervision. But when it comes to methadone detox, because it's a long-acting opioid, withdrawal can last for up to more than a month, whereas in cases of a heroin detox, the withdrawal symptoms would last between 5 and 7 days. However, none of this is to negate the fact that opioid agonist therapy is inherently better for a recovering addict than incarceration is in terms of response to this addiction.